Hello and welcome back to Overtime Operators. You're here with Casey at Niners_fanman and Daps. Daps, we got to get that handle on there. Go ahead and plug your socials for everybody.
At Dap Sports, DAPPZ Sports, baby. Let's go. Minus the baby, of course. Please
That's
say the
it.
baby.
Yeah. Don't add the baby into your search for Daps' socials. Today we're going to talk about some new stuff in the NFL. Going to get caught up on some news and notes. We're going to touch on some top 10 NFL power rankings that John and I actually did on our other show. And then we're going to get into what everybody's waiting for, the week 4 bets. So without further ado, let's get into it. Daps, what do you think about them Dolphins?
Highly impressive, 70 points, no joke. The amount of firepower on that team is absolutely unreal. I've always been a fan of Tua. Shame what happened to him last year, but he started last year the same way. He was throwing for 400 yards in a couple games. So I think if Tua is healthy, he's got two of the best receivers in the league, arguably the best. Obviously, there's a couple guys who are on that scale, but like JJ, Chase, who's been down, right? But he was a second overall fantasy pick in some leagues. And then you have Tyreek. And Tyreek has, in terms of fantasy points, he's number one. So, and then you have Mostert, who, by the way, same deal with Tua, one of the best running backs in the league, been plagued by injuries his whole career. When he's been healthy, he looks like the best running back in the league. And then this kid they just drafted, Achan, is he dropped 50. I have both of them on one team. They both had 40+ points in fantasy. I've never seen that before. That's unreal. So 2 prime running backs, 2 prime receivers. Tua can handle the ball, and the defense looks solid. But I will say, even with that impressive win last week, the Broncos stink. I don't think the Dolphins have beat anybody good so far. Refresh my memory. I don't know who they won week 1 and week 2 against.
Oh, I can't remember off the top of my head, but I'll take your word for it. It wasn't anybody too impressive.
They're playing the Bills this week, and to be honest, I like the Bills, and I just like the Bills because the Bills have been a better team for the last couple years consistently, and the Bills already had a bad loss to the Jets. They let one get away from them, so they got that out of their system now, and I think that they're going to play strong. The Bills demolished the Raiders and the Commanders back-to-back weeks. I mean, everybody's talking about 70 points against the Broncos, but like I said, the Bills beat the Raiders. It wasn't close, and they beat the Commanders, 37-3, and whatever the score was the week before that. So,
yeah, let's unpack that a little bit. One, that matchup you just pointed out, the Bills and Dolphins, little foreshadowing. We will talk about that a little bit later on in this episode. And A-Chain, that's my guy. I have a beautiful screenshot I took. I should have uploaded it on here so I could show it for the show. But in Yahoo, I don't know if you use Yahoo for your fantasy sports, but you can click on player availability across all your leagues. And I have this beautiful screenshot. In all 5 of my Yahoo leagues, I have A-Chain on every roster. Took him in the last round of just about every league. And, I mean, in a keeper league where you might be able to carry that value over the last round pick, a 13th, 14th, 15th rounder, into what could be the RB1 for the Dolphins going forward. I mean, I feel like the smartest man on the planet, even though my fantasy standings aren't quite caught up with how good I'm doing in the future. But to put this game into context, the 70-pointer, did you know that if they would have kicked the field goal at the end of the game instead of kneeling, they would have tied the highest mark of all time in the NFL? Did you know that 73 is the top mark?
I did know that, and I didn't know it was a tie. I thought that they would have beat it. And, all these football experts are saying that's the right thing to do, this and that.
Yeah. Unwritten rules kind of stuff.
If it was for the tie, I don't care as much. But if that was for the win, I'm the coach, I'm kicking that field goal.
Got it.
You're talking about history, right? So the performance that they put on is ridiculous. And also, when it's a blowout, imagine if it had been a relatively close game, right? And it's back and forth. You don't stop scoring. Right? You just keep going. You keep your foot on the pedal, right? So if that was for the record, the NFL record, and you get that close, and by the way, you just happen to drive down the field and you're at the 20 or 30 yard line for a field goal, like, come on, man, kick that field goal all day long. get that record, make history.
Yeah, I mean, I'm in agreement with you. Honestly, I would have probably kicked the field goal. Instead of kneeling it, they also could have just ran another offensive play. They were 9 yards short of the most offensive yards in history in a single game as well. So this was completely a record-setting or nearly record-setting performance by the Dolphins. I did like some of the points you made. Like, so what? Against who? Are they the real deal? Just your brief thoughts on fantasy prospects moving forward, bringing it back to the subject matter of this show. Practical application. If you have guys like Mostert, I mean, let's say if you already had Hill or Waddle, you're already starting them every week, right? Guys like Mostert, generally you're starting him this season at least every week. But now with A-Chain breaking out, how do you see that backfield? And probably Tua is automatically a starter too. So what do you think for this Dolphins offense moving forward? Who would you auto start every week, and who would you play the matchups on until we see more, I guess?
So the first thing I want to say is that Devon Achane just put out a press release through the Dolphins or through ESPN that everyone's been pronouncing his name Achane, and it's Achane. It's either Achan or Achan. So I thought that was interesting because I guess so many people have been saying his name wrong, and that finally he puts up a 50-point fantasy week. He's like, you better get my name right now, right?
Popular guy this week.
Right, for sure. So, going forward, I'm sorry, the question was, who do I like in fantasy?
Just which ones are auto starts, and who are you still playing matchup to matchup? Are you fully confident A-Chain auto start?
No, I'm not.
A-Chan?
And remember, Mostert dropped 40 points, and Achan scored 49, but like a bunch of it came in garbage time, right, when they were up. So as an owner of both,
to be fair, garbage time started in about the second quarter, though.
Absolutely. I agree, and also they put him in early on an early touchdown. Mostert is still going to start the game though, and he's going to get. They'll probably mix him in either on third down or every other drive. I'm not really sure. I'm sure McDaniels he was coaching Mostert in San Fran as well, so I'm sure he's aware of Mostert's health, and part of the reason for that is Mostert probably can't last the entire year. So unfortunately, as attractive as it is, if you have both of them, I think you're getting burned some weeks because you don't know who to play. If you have a nice flex spot, I don't think playing both of them is a bad decision, but at the same time, Waddle hasn't been playing, so there's a lot of mouths to feed over there. It's very similar to the San Francisco 49ers, right? Ayuk comes back. They got Debo. They got Christian McCaffrey. They got Kittle. Kittle didn't see much work till last week. He's got 8 receptions for almost 100 yards. Kittle hasn't scored a touchdown yet, right? So there's like I said, there's a lot of mouths to feed. Those types of teams, they're great, but they're also for fantasy, they can be a nightmare because you go, who do I start?
I agree. I'm a little bit happier with those assets right now. I think at the time being, Achan, I need to see that he's not worth starting to put him back on the bench now. You just can't miss out on 50-plus point weeks. Not that he's going to do that again, but he's explosive. And to your point about the similarities to the 49ers offense, I've always had confidence in this Dolphins offense. Mike McDaniel, master of the running game. Raheem Mostert in the right scheme is a brilliant running back, but the durability is not there. That's why I had Achan in all of my fantasy leagues. I expected the breakout. Maybe there's definitely going to be volatile weeks from here to the end of the season, but that's going to happen with every player. Achan, I'm willing to start until I see a reason not to, I guess. But to be fair, I don't have him and Mostert on the same team in any league, so I wouldn't be starting both of them at the same time.
And I think that if you have Achan and you have Mostert, and they're on different teams in every league, I think it's you absolutely start both. Each team should start both of those guys. 100%. My point was just if you have both of them. So I drafted both of them in 2 out of 3 leagues. Listen to this. I dropped Achan last week because in one league I dropped him. Yep.
Oh man, is that a fab league? Can you just drop like 100 fab to pick him back up, or you have waiver priority?
Something happened where I had the handcuff to a bunch of guys, and I got an injury or something happened, right? And I think actually I needed to use it on Jerome Ford waiver wire. Oh, so I picked up Jerome Ford. I still have Mostert. And I also have, who else do I have? I have Brian Robinson on the Commanders, who's been an absolute monster. He didn't do great last week because the Bills fell behind. But his volume is ridiculous. I think Brian Robinson, if you can get him or trade for him in any league and get him for relatively low value this week, I think I've watched him run. He's an absolute stud. People aren't really talking about him, and Brian Robinson is an absolute beast. I'm telling you.
Yeah. Well, you should have called your boy and let me talk you off the ledge there with the Achan dropping. But it was hard to predict the breakout here, especially this early in the season. Let's round off the rest of our news and notes segment here. Some notable week 3 injuries. Derek Carr left the game last week with a shoulder injury. It's reported that there's a decent chance he misses time. I haven't seen anything more concrete than that so far. It's still early in the week as of this recording. So wait and see. But probably if he's your starter in fantasy, you need to have some plans for the next few weeks, probably, because he's going to miss some time. Jimmy Garoppolo may or may not have a concussion. I haven't even seen it confirmed yet. So it's unknown whether or not he'll miss time. Seems less significant than the Derek Carr injury, though. And of course, the big one, they're starting to drop like flies. Mike Williams out for season with a knee injury. Daps, do you have? Oh, and one more thing here. Alvin Kamara returns from suspension. Daps, just kind of all of those all together. Any thoughts on those 4 different situations?
Yeah, I mean, I think Jimmy G stinks as like a NFL quarterback, but for the terms or fantasy purposes, I think that he's been solid. Devontae's getting the ball, dropped 40 last week. Jacoby Myers is scoring too as well over there in Las Vegas, and they're still 1-2. I don't think there's like, such cause for concern in Vegas. The Broncos look bad. The Chargers aren't doing great. Obviously, the Chiefs are in that division, but it's okay to lose a game this early. I don't think Devontae liked the way they lost, but your quarterback goes down. Obviously, that's a problem, and I don't know who their backup is, but the Raiders are definitely in trouble at the moment or for the foreseeable future.
I think it was that kid. I forget his name, but he showed out in preseason. Shoot, his name's escaping me. I'll look it up, but go ahead and keep talking.
Yeah, and listen, maybe you got a young kid who comes in and he's eager to play and wants to prove himself, and I could be completely wrong. Do we know who the Raiders are playing next week? We'll just pop into this real quick. The Raiders are going to play. I'll tell you in 1 second.
It's Aiden O'Connell. By the way, they have Brian Hoyer, who's listed as their QB2, but I doubt he would actually come in the way Aiden O'Connell played.
This is a great segue, by the way. The Raiders are playing the Chargers this week, and this is a huge game. They're both 1-2, and Devontae Adams obviously was critical of the team after the loss, but you get a win next week against the division rival, and it's a big win. And you're 2-2, and there's no cause for concern. So the Chargers or the Raiders are going to be 1-3 and 2-2, and if you're 2-2, it just seems like you're in a very, very good position, in my opinion.
Yeah, statistically, got to be much, much better to be in that spot than 1-3. So we'll see how that shakes out.
And then moving over to Derek Carr, I mean, the Saints defense was looking. I don't think they let up a touchdown in like the first 6 quarters or something like that, or 7 quarters. Jordan Love, I was playing him in one league, and he had 3 fantasy points going in the 4th quarter, ended up with 25. Jordan Love is slowly becoming a fantasy stud, under the radar at the moment. So Derek Carr goes out of the game. They come back. They're up 17-0. They lose 18-0 or 18-17 to the Packers. Derek Carr, as little attention as he gets, he's a solid quarterback to have as a Jets fan with the situation going on right now. Like, I would be happy to have Derek Carr, under center with my defense. So not good for the Saints. I do think the Saints are in a very, very bad division. So I think even if he sat for 2 or 3 weeks,
they'll still make the playoffs, right?
Yeah, they can be okay. Not really worried about that. Like, the Raiders should be worried. But Mike Williams going down for Herbert, I would say that's a big deal, but Keenan Allen's an absolute monster. Now, Keenan Allen traditionally, historically, gets injured every other year or even every year. So that's something everybody's going to have to monitor. And then you go into Josh Palmer, and you have two decent tight ends that he can throw to, Gerald Everett and this kid Parham Jr., who caught a touchdown last week. So, interesting guys to monitor. I think Palmer's like a big fantasy waiver wire pickup now, because who's gonna get those targets now that Mike Williams is gone is the question, and whoever it is, might be 12 to 15 points a game.
I
Week.
agree. All those guys you mentioned have a little bit more value now, just because we haven't seen where the target vacuum will end up favoring somebody else. The only other name I'd throw out there is the rookie Quentin Johnston. A lot of buzz around him. I'm a big fantasy rookie guy. Same idea with Achan. So big on him. You want to have them. They break out throughout the year typically. Even easier for a rookie receiver to do it than a rookie running back, I would argue, down the line in the season. So I would just pay attention to those guys. And then to wrap up this segment, Alvin Kamara returning from suspension. I mean, this is tough with Derek Carr going down in the same week. I think you need to have your expectations tempered for Kamara. He's not the same guy he used to be. This offense without Carr is not going to look good, assuming Carr does miss time. But I do think that when Carr returns, when and if that is, Kamara will be a starter, and he'll be flex worthy. Probably could slip into your RB2. Just don't expect the Alvin Kamara of old to, single handedly win you fantasy matchups from the RB position.
Yeah, I was trying to work through that because I did take him in one. I did do the Jamal Williams Kamara combo in one league, and Jamal was obviously a disaster, which is crazy because he was so good on the Lions.
Goal line back.
But to be honest, let's just pretend for the sake of this, argument that Kamara was healthy and started the year. I mean, I think he's going at the turn of the first round, or there's no way Kamara's getting to the third round. There's absolutely
probably
no
not
way.
the third. Yeah, he wouldn't have made it past that like Josh Jacobs-ish tier, where there's question marks.
I mean, I saw Dameon Pierce go in the second round. I saw Devontae Smith go in the second round. I saw Derrick Henry. So, thinking obviously, hindsight is 2020, but there's no way Kamara is making it out of the second round in any league that I'm in that's like competitive. Somebody is going to go, I'm taking a chance on Kamara with my second pick. So listen, with Derek Carr, I don't know how much he likes to throw to receivers. I don't know, but again, I just think that because Carr is not so good. I mean, think about Josh Jacobs with Derek Carr last year, crushed.
Yeah.
So if they're running the ball and he's high usage, now Jamal Williams just went down. I know they have this kid who can probably take away some snaps from Kamara just to make sure his legs don't break. But I see Kamara slotting in and being good for 15 points a week with like a 12-point floor every week just on usage. Because remember, Kamara is going to get 5 receptions a game too. So those things add up.
I agree. I do still think that in the first few weeks, especially without Derek Carr, there's a good chance that he kind of eases back in as far as fantasy production, even though he'll be the featured guy. But if that does happen, I would go say he's a trade target after this week if he kind of flops for fantasy, because I do agree with your prediction there in general. So let's move on here. Daps, our other show that John and I, we're missing John today, but him and I do another show, more of a sports comedy type of show. We did something sort of serious last time around on that show, and we did our top 10 NFL teams, our power rankings, if you will, whatever that means. Power rankings. What is it? The teams that have the most power. Anyway, I want to share those with you. We did these before week 3 started, and I want you to help me judge kind of how we did and what we should change here, so we can do a quick little power rankings of our own for overtime operators going into week 4 now. I wonder if this is big enough on the screen for you to see, Daps, or should I make that larger?
If you can make it bigger, that would be helpful.
Here we go.
Perfect.
There we go. So I'll just read these off real quick, and then go ahead and tell me your thoughts on a couple of these that stand out. Then let's start switching these up. At number 1, the Dolphins. 2, the 49ers. 3, the Chiefs. 4, the Cowboys. 5, the Bills. 6, the Eagles. 7, the Jaguars. 8, the Chargers. 9, the Rams. And 10, the Bengals. We just couldn't bring ourselves to leave the Bengals off the list, so they ended up in that 10 spot. Daps, any of these stand out to you as really good or really bad spots for these teams?
I disagree with a good amount of this list. I'm gonna. So I just watched Stephen A. Smith, ESPN. They just did a top 5 list. So same list, just 5 teams, and I disagreed with them as well.
Sure.
They had the Dolphins and Niners, I think, in the 1-2. Um, I'm not even with the loss. I think I don't. If I had to bet every single week, I'm betting on the Chiefs. I don't care if the Dolphins scored 70 against the Broncos. I'm not picking the Dolphins to beat Patrick Mahomes any week this year. I'm putting the Chiefs in the 1 spot, followed by the Eagles. The Eagles are they win in this grimy way, running the ball. They cannot be this 4th and 1 that they run cannot be stopped. It's unreal. I don't know how they end up on the goal line all the time running this play. Even
they
when
look like
Jalen
the
Hurts
Atlanta Falcons, but actually a good team, like grimy ground game. But
yeah,
good.
and even when Jalen Hurts isn't playing, perfect quarterback ball, they're dominating games. I mean, he didn't look great last night. He looked good. I think he had 1 pick, but they dominated the Bucs. It was a slow start, and then they dominated the Bucs. It wasn't close. They controlled the ball the whole game. They do that every game. I think that there was 7 or 8 minutes left when they got the ball in the 4th, and they just ran the clock out on the Bucs. And the Bucs Baker had just put one in the end zone. They got a little energy. Maybe you get the ball back after 3 minutes, drive down, score a touchdown. Now you're down 7 with 2 minutes left. Hopefully onside kick. Like that's how you thought the game was going to go. No, Eagles dominated. I will put the Dolphins in the 3 spot, and then followed by your Niners. And to be honest, like the Niners could also be in the 3 spot. I think the Niners defense edges out the Dolphins, and I think the offenses are on the same level. I think that you have to give the edge to running back to the Niners. Obviously, that Christian is better than Mostert and Achane. Receivers, I think you have to give the edge to the Dolphins because of Tyreek and Waddle. But like Ayuk and Debo and Kittle are not far behind. So 3-4, I think the Dolphins and the Niners are basically the same team in that spot. The Cowboys, after this past weekend, typical Cowboys. I mean,
brings joy to my heart, honestly. Talking about the Cowboys maybe being the top team in the NFC, which we always knew wasn't the case.
They beat the Giants and the Jets. So I have the Bills in the 5 spot. I like where they're at above the Cowboys.
Okay, let's start rounding this out real quick because I actually agreed with a lot of your things too. This was kind of a combined thing with John and our audience on Triple Cross. So there were some things that I disagreed with as well that got away from me. I think I actually was an advocate for the Chiefs in the top spot, if I remember correctly. So I'm with you there. So you wanted to go the Chiefs, and then who did you have at 2?
I had Eagles at 2.
Eagles. I maybe would gripe there and say the Niners look better than the Eagles, but that I think is up for interpretation. I think they're real close. I think it's pretty clear those are still the top 2 teams in the NFC. I haven't seen anything to change my mind there. And then you wanted to go with the Dolphins here at 4. I'm in complete agreement that they're the last team kind of missing from this top 4. I think these are the top 4 teams in football. That makes sense to me. And then you have the Bills here next. Kind of up and down performances, but it's just one of those teams. It's hard to bring them down too far on this list. Is that kind of your sentiment here?
Yeah, that's the sentiment there. I'd probably put the Ravens in the 6th spot, even with their bad loss.
In the 6th spot. Wow. Okay.
Well, it's just, I'm sorry, Cowboys in the 6th. That's my fault.
Cowboys.
We'll put the Cowboys in the 6th. We'll put the Dolphins, we'll put the Ravens in the 7. But to be honest, like if you put the Ravens above the Cowboys, the Ravens, let me see who the Ravens beat. But I bet you it's better than the Jets and the Giants. So
probably
the Ravens.
Let's
the Ravens beat Houston, who by the way actually looks decent, and they just beat Cincinnati last week. So there's no way I'm putting the Bengals above the Ravens. 0% chance.
Sure.
So I like the Ravens at the 6, Cowboys 7.
So let's pause for a second here with these last 3. Now, these last 3, I think just about anybody could make the argument they don't belong on this list. And I don't think I I think I was advocating for some other teams. Before we get your thoughts on it, I just want to kind of throw it out there. I know a team like the Lions, I felt like a huge snub the way that our audience on Triple Cross didn't get them in the top 10. I still believe that. I don't care about the record or anything. I just believe my eyes, and they look like a team that can win football games, good football games. And I felt similarly about the Seahawks. I think I might have also been on the Saints train in here. Oh, and the Jags are not on this list anymore because I deleted them. Those would be the four that jump out to me. Maybe keep the Chargers in mind. I don't know. There's a lot of AFC teams that are more suspect than a lot of people want to believe. Meanwhile, there's some teams in the NFC that I'm pretty high on. So what do you think here in these last three depths? Should I just erase these three? Are they not
you should definitely erase those. I agree with you with the Lions. I think that the last three in no particular order would be the Lions, the Saints, and the Steelers. Is nobody's talking about the Steelers.
Wow, Steelers,
who are 2-1. Kenny Pickett looks solid. They have Mike Tomlin and a strong defense. They have the best defensive player in the league. They have Minkah Fitzpatrick, and two of the wins they had were like really, really impressive wins. So what, like games they're not supposed to win. They got demolished by the Niners, which whatever. But
a lot of teams that's gonna happen to them.
They came back and beat Cleveland, who's also 2-1, and then they beat Vegas last week. You know, games that like you're really not supposed to win. They're playing Houston this week, which is definitely winnable, and then they're going to play division rival Baltimore. So if they were to be able to beat Baltimore, I mean, we're talking about a team that's 4-1. So you know, Steelers at 4-1, there's no way you're not in the top 10, and you might be in the top 5 at 4-1. So.
Okay. All right. We can add them in there for sure. So you said Lions, the Steelers, and what was the other team you said?
Lions, Saints, Steelers.
Lions, Saints, Steelers. Do you think the Lions are the top out of those three teams?
I will, because of their win against the Chiefs, I'll put them in the 8th spot. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with you there. And then Saints and Steelers, I won't disagree with you. I would say the Saints, though, the Derek Carr injury does kind of change things. I do think they'll make the playoffs because of their division they're in. But as far as putting them in the top 10 power rankings, you know, without having a healthy quarterback, that's a tough sell. But
I mean, the other teams that you could put in there would be the Colts, who are 2-1, there's no way. To be honest, the Browns are 2-1, and the Browns are strong. Like the Browns
Nick Chubb anymore, though.
Jerome Ford is like mini Nick Chubb. It doesn't matter.
I don't know if I agree with that.
Jerome Ford dropped 18 fantasy points last week, and by the way, when Chubb was in the game, he was getting carries. So the thing, listen, I like Chubb, but the Browns for the last 5 years have had a top 5, top 10 offensive line. So, you know, when you have those the top 5 offensive lines or the top 10 offensive lines, they're able to kind of plug and play running backs. Not to say there's guys who don't have skill who can hit holes faster, but when the line is moving that defensive line back on their heels, you're going to get an extra 2 to 3 yards per rush, right? And that's always attributed to the running back, but a lot of it is on the offensive line. So that's why the Niners look so good, right? That's why by the way, the Cowboys, the only reason I'll leave them in that spot too is they didn't have 3 of their starting offensive linemen against the Cardinals. So like
it's the Cardinals, man. It was the Cardinals, and it was gross the whole game.
They got dominated by the Cardinals.
What happened to that defense? Like, I mean, they should have shut down the Cardinals completely. It should have been
but nobody has shut down the Cardinals. The Cardinals are like this weird, interesting, dynamic offense now.
They got nothing to lose, man.
Yeah, they got nothing to lose. Like Rondale Moore's exciting. James Conner, by the way, looks like young James Conner. He looks like a beast. And you can't hate on this kid Dobbs. Like he's playing ball. He's making plays. So, you know, I'm a Dobbs fan. As of right now, like I'm watching him going. As a Jets fan, I wish Dobbs was my backup quarterback, and this was the guy who they slot in for Aaron Rodgers. You know what I mean? So it's all relative.
Agreed. All right. I almost called you Dobbs. Wow. All right. So I dropped the Steelers in at 9 just because they're the only team here without that aren't really dealing with like super serious injuries out of the ones we were kind of talking about there. So sounds like we're kind of around the Browns And I don't know, I threw out the Seahawks and we mentioned the Saints as well. Who do you like there to put in the 10 spot here going into week 4? Who do you want to take a shot on here? I feel like the 10 spot is more for like, who's the team who's going to be here in a couple of weeks that we're getting ahead of the curve on? Who deserves that 10 spot?
Well, I mean, the other team that is 2-1, who I think is solid, is the Seahawks. So Geno Smith played great last year. Kenneth Walker is a beast. They have that kid Charbonnet, who they just drafted. Yeah. So they have two.
Started finally looking okay in some game time stuff. That was good.
They have DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett, who are like two of the most slept on receivers there are, right?
And so JSN.
Like, yeah, for sure. And Geno Smith, like, I just saw some quote that, like, Geno, because he was talking up one of his receivers on the sideline. They're like, they should make a movie about Geno Smith's career one day. If
they should.
And obviously, if he wins nothing, then whatever. But I mean, I remember when we drafted him on the Jets, and like, this guy has been irrelevant for 5 years, 6 years, 8 years. Like, they drafted him a long time ago. And I think you're seeing that the success of the Seahawks, you didn't really know what it was, but it was definitely Pete Carroll over Russell Wilson. Pete Carroll put Russell Wilson in positions to be great, because when Russell Wilson has been given the ball by himself, like, he can't win games. He can't win. And listen, Russ is making plays. You know what I mean? I've seen Russ make some plays, but he can't win. It's crazy. He can't win games. That, like,
doesn't have it.
The amount
of
games that he's losing by, like, this or that it's wild.
Yeah. So good teams, good players find a way to win close games. Bad players, bad teams find a way to lose those games. I agree with you on that. So it sounds like you're kind of on the Seahawks too, but I'll give this one to you. Seahawks, Saints, Browns. Who do you want in the 10 spot?
I think we should do I think we should go benefit of the doubt. We'll give the Seahawks. They had two solid wins, or at least one solid win.
Love it. The last thing I want to challenge on this, just because I'm looking at it, I'm wondering, do you really believe the Cowboys over the Lions here, or are you high enough on the Lions to challenge that? Because I might be.
I would 100%. I was going to say before, the Lions beat the Chiefs.
Yeah.
So, I'd have to give the nod to them in that aspect. But, the only thing playing against that is if the Cowboys had their 3 offensive linemen, I would have loved to see how that game was different. That's all I would say.
Fair enough.
But I thought the Cowboys defense was going to be like demolishing everybody this year, and now I'm going.
Well, no Trayvon Diggs now either, so that's a massive blow to that defense. Micah Parsons looked remarkably human in the last game, even though he still had at least 1 sack. That's, you're used to seeing him have 2-3 pile up plays, like game-making plays. Anyway, that's our top 10 here. We got Chiefs, Eagles, 49ers, Dolphins, Bills, Ravens, Lions, Cowboys, Steelers, Seahawks. Don't tell John I'm more in favor of this list than the one we came up with on Triple Cross, which is a little bit more hot takey and for the audience.
And I mean, I would also say we should do like a little segment on like kind of teams to keep an eye on, so to speak. And for me, those teams are the Chargers. Obviously, you have Herbert. They're 1-2. The Rams, I was very high on the Rams. Bad loss last night. Didn't look good on the road. Sloppy. But the Rams have a lot of young playmakers, and if McVay can kind of get it together, like, I really like the Rams as a sleeper team to make some noise later. The Vikings at 0-3, I still want you to look at it only because that division is bad. And, listen, think about it. The best team in that division right now is 2-1. So they're 2 games out of first. I know it's crazy to think about that, but it's still early. Everybody likes to get super dramatic. There's plenty of teams that went 0-3 or 1-2 to make the playoffs in history. I'm probably, when you get in that 0-4, 0-5 spot, the percentages probably drop off a cliff. But teams to watch. Bengals, obviously. Burrow. We'll see about his health, and also the Packers. The Jordan Love, like I said, looks really good. Aaron Jones went down week 1. He looked really solid. He'll come back. Their defense is pretty solid. The Packers. They could be the front runners for that division. Like I said, I like the Lions. I'm excited to see those division matchups. Lions, Packers, Vikings, Lions, Vikings, right?
I'm excited as well. We'll have to wait and see how those go. Daps, let's get into our final segment of the day, of the episode, what everybody's waiting for, our bets, our bet recommendations. Mind you, this is not financial advice. Please bet responsibly if you do choose to bet. But if you want to know what we're betting on, this is the segment for you. So, Daps, I'm going to go ahead and show you. I have this already filled out. I'm going to propose bets to you. You tell me whether you're in on those bets, out on those bets, or you're against those bets, meaning you want to just take the other side altogether. Maybe it'll get spicy. Let's see. Let's dive into this doc that I've prepared for us. So, first game up that I've chosen here, Lions at Packers. Lions are the 1.5 point favorites. I like the Lions to beat that spread. Are you in, out, or against?
I like the Lions in this game. This is their spread's 1.5 for a reason though, because Packers at home loves playing well. If the Packers won, I'm not surprised, but I like the brand of football the Lions are playing right now. I'll put my money on the Lions.
Would you take it against the spread, or would you go money line here?
I would just take it against the spread because
okay, I'm more of a spread guy too. I don't know, especially these close games. Like, what are we doing here? All right, let's keep moving quick. Let's keep firing away here. Falcons at Jacksonville. The Jaguars are the 3-point favorites. I like Jacksonville coming off a pretty bad game, mind you, but I like them to beat a decent Falcons team here by more than 3 points. Are you in, out, or against?
I think this is a statement game for the Jags. I would go money line Jags just because I wouldn't want to get burnt because I could see that game coming down to a field goal.
All right. Got Daps down for that. And honestly, I was torn on that one too. I don't normally, like I said, I like the spread more often. And 3 points is right where you start going like, man, a field goal could really be the difference between cashing in on this bet or not. All right, next up, Miami Dolphins at Buffalo Bills. This is a great matchup. These are two teams in our power rankings. I think we're almost back to. I think they were back to back actually. So this will definitely affect our power rankings. Let's say. I'm surprised, if I'm being honest, that the Bills at home are 2.5 point favorites. I know at home they typically kind of give them 3 points, but man, the Dolphins coming off of 70-point game, I get it. I get all the context. I'm surprised the Dolphins aren't the favorites here, and I'm taking the Dolphins to beat that spread. Are you in, out, or against, Epps?
I'm going Bills at home. It's rough and rowdy in Buffalo. I've been to that area. They're nuts over there. The Dolphins are, in my opinion, overhyped because of this 70-point fiasco, and I think the Dolphins are good, but you know what? I also want to see something real quick. The Dolphins beat the Chargers by 2. They beat New England by a touchdown, and then they destroyed Denver. So, they have not beat a team with a winning record yet. So,
sure.
We'll see, but I'm going Bills on this one.
Bills with the spread or money line? Which one do you like here?
I would take the -2.5.
Okay. All right. So next up, we have the Cincinnati Bengals at the Tennessee Titans. Titans are the favorite by 1.5. I have the Bengals to beat the spread. Get right game. Man, maybe the Bengals don't deserve to be in the top 10 anymore. I think that's clear at this point. But they have to bounce back at some point, right? Like there has to be some kind of bounce back. And the Tennessee Titans, even at their best, they can grind out some wins, but they're really not that good. I got the Bengals beating the spread here too, honestly.
Yeah, I think that I would take the Bengals +1.5. The Titans they're that weird team who somehow covers or wins these games they're not supposed to, but they don't look like the Titans of the last couple of years that run the ball heavy, and the Henry is not dominating yet. It might be a slow start, but that's kind of my opinion there.
All right, next matchup then, LA Rams at the Indy Colts. Colts are a point favorite. I got the Rams to beat the spread here, to cover the spread. Maybe I should have just gone money line on them, but I don't know. Why not take the point? What do you think on this one? You in, out, or against me on this one?
I like the Rams. I'm taking
the
Rams. I'm taking Rams money line.
Oh, Rams on the money line. Gotcha.
Oh no, I would take the point. I would take the point.
I mean, why not? It's there for you, right?
Yeah.
Okay, we're in agreement on that one. So you're in. Next up, Washington Commanders at Philadelphia Eagles. Eagles are a 7-point favorite. This is my big spread of the week. I think the Eagles do beat this spread. I got burnt by the Commanders last week. I want Sam Howell to be better than he is. He looked good in preseason, but we can't keep betting based on how people looked in preseason. It's that time in the season now. We have a data sample. I got the Eagles beating them by over 7 and pretty handily, honestly. How about you?
Yeah, they're going to dominate. I watched the Bills Commanders game last week, and Sam Howell, who I was kind of like rooting for, played bad.
Yeah,
he threw multiple interceptions that he did not have to throw. And I mean, most of the game, it didn't matter because they were down, but you try to lead some type of comeback. You're down 3 touchdowns, you score a touchdown, you get a little momentum. At least you fire your guys up on your side of the ball, making them believe, hey, we can come back if we go down in games. Even if we come back and fall short, that's okay. But Howell didn't look good. Bills defense solid, like I said. That's why I like them against the Dolphins, and the Eagles are going to roll.
All right, moving along here. Vikings at Panthers. Vikings are the 3-point favorites, and I'll take them to beat that spread. Daps, are you in, out, or against me?
Vikings -3. The Panthers do not look good. I don't know if they even know who's playing. I actually took Seattle to win big last week against them. And they started off a little slow, and then they dominated the rest of the game. So Andy Dalton played decent, as a slot and backup again. I would be happy to have Andy Dalton as a backup,
Sure.
But
there's a lot of guys.
I could probably say this on like every other quarterback we go through, right?
I think it's easier just to say you're unhappy with Zach Wilson.
Yeah, I'm unhappy with Zach Wilson.
So does that put you in with me with the Vikings beating that spread?
Yep, absolutely.
All right. I don't want to jump the gun. I feel like I know where you're going sometimes by what you're saying, but I'm always waiting for that curveball. All right, last matchup I have here: Seahawks at Giants. Seahawks are 1.5 favorites, but they're playing in New York. I think a lot of people think this could be close. I think this is where the Seahawks separate themselves as, more like borderline actually in the playoffs, and we expose the Giants as not a playoff team here. Like, finally. Like we really cement that into place. But that's just my opinion. Daps, are you in, out, or against me on this one?
I'm going to go with the Giants on the upset here. It's tough to fly across the country. A lot of teams, when they have to do that 3,000-mile kind of cross the country travel, they're just...
Especially that way, you lose time.
Yeah. So the Giants, they need a win for New York. Now, listen, the Giants and the Jets, historically, this is like... they're supposed to win this game and they lose them. But the Giants looked good last year, right? And I don't think their team dynamic has changed much. I don't know their roster the way I know other teams, but I think Saquon's not going to be in. Daniel Jones, they had a really, really strong comeback win against the Cardinals last week, before they got pummeled by the Niners. But I don't think anybody expected them to compete with the Niners.
You like them money line or to beat the spread?
I would probably take them money line.
All right, money line it is. So just a quick little recap of our matchups. I'm going to point out the ones that we share an opinion on. So those are kind of like our super bets, like bet these with confidence. We agreed on the Lions being the spread against the Packers. We agreed on, let's see, wow, where else did we go here? Bengals beating the spread against the Titans. Rams beating the spread against the Colts. Eagles spread against the Commanders, and Vikings spread against the Panthers. I think we were torn on all the other ones besides that. So pick who you want to bet with. Are you in, out, or against me or Daps? That's how you should be betting. Now let's get into player props. The last portion of the show here. Last kinds of bets we're going to talk about. And Daps, I have a 5-pack of tight end player props here to round out this episode. I'll just say them to you, and you tell me which ones you're in, out, or against me on. Travis Kelce, 68.5 receiving yards. I'm going to take the over there. think he's getting back into the flow of things with Mahomes, away from his injury now, two weeks removed from that. He should be the clear number one target. I think he's going to clear that with ease. Mark Andrews, similar situation completely. He kind of disappointed in his return, but again, coming back 2 weeks removed from an injury, I don't see anybody else asserting themselves as the alpha receiving threat. Lamar has a lot of chemistry built with Andrews. I'm going to take the over on 52.5 receiving yards there as well. Hawkinson, this one, I think he's already been doing more or less, and they're kind of this line is anticipating him kind of falling off a little bit. The Vikings throw the ball a ton. They're always down. Let's just keep rolling with that. I got Hawkinson to beat 52.5 receiving yards as well. And then Sam Laporta, this rookie on the Lions, very involved in their offensive game plans. Offense is moving to. He's beaten both of these props, I think, every single week. So I have him beating 4.5 receptions and 42.5 receiving yards. Daps, which ones of these are you in with me, and which ones are you against me, and which ones are you just out?
I think I'm in on the over on all of them except for Mark Andrews. I would go under.
Oh, okay. Awesome. Well, then we see it pretty much the same there. And if I'm being honest, I get the Mark Andrews thing as well. That's the one I probably have the least confidence in. But we did pay up for these guys in fantasy, and it's time for them to start showing why. I think maybe that's wishful thinking because I do have Mark Andrews in one league. So, yeah, that's how we're betting this week. Thank you for tuning in to Overtime Operators. I've been Casey at Niners_fanman, and Daps has been with me as well. Daps, go ahead and plug your socials one more time for everybody to know where to find you.
Yeah, come check out our streams and our content at DAPZ Sports, DAPPZ Sports, TikTok, YouTube, Instagram, all over the place. Casey, thank you for having me on Overtime Operators. Always a pleasure talking sports.
I agree. Couldn't have said it better myself. Thanks for being here, Daps, and thank you for being here, viewers. We will catch you next time. Bye-bye.